Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am Captain Frodo, and it will be my pleasure to be your gracious host and guide along this leg of the journey of the Way of the Showman. I'm recording very early in the morning here today. I am in my caravan in the southern end of Norway in Kristiansand, where I have the pleasure now of having a few stolen hours alone with my wife and daughter away on business. I am here in Kristiansand because I am, like last year, spending 2 months or 9 weeks or whatever it is over the summer here in Norway in a little circus called Circus Jesper. And this particular production is a mix of theatre and circus based on a book written by Torbjørn Egner, a Norwegian children's author, one of the most famous one of the most famous stories in Norway, something that every Norwegian child grows up with, and it's working as a family show by simultaneously being exciting for the kids, bringing characters that the kids know and love, but also bringing the characters that the parents knew and loved. So it has this distinct flavor of nostalgia that is experienced by the adults, and that I know that when my friend the Space Cowboy arrived, he didn't see that dimension and thought, it's just a sort of, that's the theatre aspect is for the children and circus is for everyone, kind of. But I do think that that level of nostalgia and the level of seeing these characters doing things that you didn't know from the book, because these characters never get to do anything else. The guy who made these characters was famously very careful with anyone using them to sell any other products or whatever. He wanted their integrity to be strong, and this show has that integrity. It, of course, for those of you who might remember, tells the story of the 3 robbers who gets caught by the police and then get let back out again when there's a fire in the tower in town, and he saves some animals and saves some people, and turns out that they're pretty good and they get to be redeemed, one as a baker, one as a fireman, and finally one as a circus ringmaster. So he gets his own circus, and this is then the continuation of the story, where we get to act out and be that circus that we all probably longed to experience, because you don't actually get to be in the circus in the book, because it's the climax of the book, the redemption of the thief into a circus director, which I guess a circus man is probably only a very small step removed from that time's idea of thief. They were right there with the carnies and whatever else the stereotypes would say, the gypsies, the people who you would have to be careful about when they were about. So this is a beautiful story of that. And anyway, I'm saying all of this because it is just so nice to be in a group of performers, to be in a show with a whole bunch of performers. For the most part of my career, through 12 years with La Soirée and then being in Vegas and all that, I've always been with a group of performers. So now I've been a few years here where I'm mainly doing like corporate gigs and stuff. You jump on a plane, you go somewhere, you meet some people for on a little festival or whatever, but a lot of it is just it's commercial kind of work. So I am absolutely grateful and loving that kind of work too, but it is so nice to be reconnected, and because when you're with a group of people, there is depth. Depth is something that we experience through connections, how everything is connected, and I'm working together with a bunch of different people, but one group of them, 4 of them, is a family of kind of the traditional clowns. They traveled a lot with traditional circuses here in Scandinavia, and the father of that family, his name is Bonbon Lasse, and his wife Tina, and they have a badminton act together, which is just absolutely incredible. And the juxtapositioning of the traditional clown with the big shoes and the red nose, and the actual skills that they then reveal after drinking a magic potion within the badminton act, juxtaposed with me and the tennis, it brings this whole sort of weird clown sporting theme onto the thing. But they have 2 kids who are in their 20s, so they're not kids, but they Joachim and Julia. And then we have Freddie Stickle, who is a man in his 70s, who has been a circus performer for his entire life as well. I just wanted to, because what's cool about that man, Freddie Stickle, he's done a table sliding knockabout act where there's a thing when you're jumping and then if you jump up and sit on your bum on the table and you've got some speed, you can slide on that table. And if somebody else was sitting on that table before you started sliding, you can knock them off. So this is kind of like a clowning one-on-one. Circus schools, I certainly remember seeing, I know fruit flies in Australia and Albury, and also now it's standing completely still here, like Spaghetti Circus in Mullumbimby in Australia as well. I've seen them all doing this kind of table sliding stuff. And the interesting thing was that when Freddie then was talking about his act, he was saying, oh well, it's just that a bit of razzle dazzle. It's something that you do if you don't have you need to fill something in your show. And this is a guy who has been in every kind of huge productions and tiny productions, and started a circus in Finland with his brother, and on all the levels. So he's sort of like, oh, well, you could always do that. But then he took this shtick of knockabout and falling and two people wanting to sit on a chair, literally that one, and then wanting to get on a table to get up high to fix something or whatever. And they took that thing and they turned it into an act. And then this thing, which is a very general thing, and that was interesting because my friend Space Cowboy, who was visiting, he also said, oh, they did some table sliding, and I'm going, yeah, but the difference is, so what I haven't said here, the difference is that it's made into an act, and this is the act that Freddie Stickle made and toured for 30 years, and he supported his family and himself, and if you've done an act for 30 years and that's what you get booked to do, that thing is not just something that's thrown together. It's been thrown together in a very specific way, and each little bit that follows, each little bit builds upon it. Now, he has now taught that act to the kids in their 20s of the Bonbons clown family. And that is an interesting thing, that the act is actually being passed on. It's like the baton is being passed on, like it was with the great magicians in the past. There was this baton that was passed on from Thurston to who knows what. That's beside the point. But I love to see how the act is being then kept alive. It's being transformed, and now brother and sister is doing it, and but the act is the same. So it's staying alive as an organism, staying alive in the circus. And it's really interesting. And then to sort of top that whole little thing of connections was that Joachim and Julia are the kids who are doing the act. Are not kids. I should stop calling them that. But they are doing Freddie's act, and then Joachim got sick. He was just about well enough that he could function and do all the cues in the show, but we took that act. He was taken out of that act, and then Freddie goes, "Oh well, we're not gonna cut it, so I'll just do it." So then, with a couple of hours of training, because we only found out that he was sick in the morning, then Freddie goes out, works with Julia. He's done it for 30 years, so of course he knows it, but he's now in his mid-70s. So that puts a whole nother spin of it. So when the act starts and it's a rope that's tied to a bucket, and the two of them are just out there looking like stagehands, and they take the rope off the bucket, and the rope whizzes up into the roof, and they need to grab it. They can't get it, so she goes and gets a chair and she pulls it out. And normally when it's a brother and a sister in their 20s and they have a little mat, when somebody pulls the chair away on somebody in their 20s and they fall, it's a nice little warm-up to the idea of slapstick and this sort of pretend fight of, I want to be the one that gets up on the chair or eventually up on the table or whatever, up to try and get this rope. But So we have a full tent, 350 people and a 20-meter big top inside this beautiful theme park. It's all exciting, and they go on, and for me backstage, I'm now standing on the side, and I started to film it because I thought this is amazing, but then I'm realizing that I'm just filming the ground because I'm watching it, and to not miss the experience, as we've talked about, I put my phone away and just experience the act. And I'm watching also, of course, and watch the act many times, and I can see through the act onto the audience, and I see a lady who's watching, and she's middle-aged or above, and she, when Julia pulls the chair away as a revenge, and Freddie Stickle in his 70s falls flat onto his back, the audience just, particularly the adults, they just go absolutely bonkers. They're going, oh my lord, look at that, this is totally inappropriate, and it just gets more and more wild, because that's just the beginning. But seeing that beautiful grace of age on stage, and what we then expect a man in his 70s to be able to do. So when he is standing on top of the table, and she jumps up and slides underneath him and knocks his legs out, and he falls flat out with legs up, lands on his back to a slam, amplified by his hands on the table. It's just, people were in awe when I was, and then he ends by carrying her around on his shoulders, and she finally gets the rope, and the act is comes to a conclusion, and I had just completely forgotten about my duties to open and close that curtain. So they just couldn't almost not get out, because I was standing on the side watching the act. But that is the kind of, that's why it is so nice to work in an ensemble, to be with all these other people who share that passion that I have for showmanship, for performance. And here, like, there's so much emphasis and understanding of the physical nature of comedy, physical comedy, so slapstick and things going wrong, but it actually being a great comedy act and not just something actually going wrong. It's very nice, and it really has been amazing now because being an ensemble, there's so much more stimulation, there's so much more connections, and that's where I feel that depth. We're all living together in a beautiful little valley where all the caravans are set up. There's a bunch of dogs running around, and so you might have heard some of them in the background of the recording. And yeah, it really feels like a living, breathing thing. So even though my caravan this very peculiar morning is empty, my wife having gone to Finland to visit some other circus friends, and my daughter being with one of the other child actors from the show in a cabin off by the sea, and I am here in the valley recording with you. So this was just a sort of picture, and this a little bit of appreciation as to just how nice it is to be in this environment again, and this community again, because circus is a very good community, and it's been a bit it's been interesting too to there's a troupe here called the Godfathers, and they come from Ukraine, so that certainly put a very peculiar tint on the show as well, where now in the beginning we just introduced them, and of course from talking to them backstage and everything, and it's full on to be from Ukraine now, and it brings in, awakens in me this understanding of just how awful it is for Ukraine at the moment, and how they can't go home because of the situation, and you'll end up being given a gun and whatever, and that would be me if I just by the sheer happenstance was born in some other country just a little bit more to the east of where we are. Then I would be in that situation. So that's full on. But in the beginning they were just introduced like they are in the show. No one has been introduced by where they are from. But after we had done it for a little bit, we now introduce this troupe as please put your hands together from them all the way from Ukraine, the Godfathers. And as they say that, you can you can see it and you can sense it, and when that curtain goes up and those guys come out dressed in their pinstripe suits, it's got a sort of Godfather look to it, and they come out, the audience pretty much just claps in beat with the music, or claps or screams for the entire duration of the act. So it's it adds this really powerful emotional thing to it. So it is wonderful to be back in the community for all the goods and bads. Now, let's move on. A showman is a curator of time and attention. Now, I believe that the showman is an archetypal pattern for human beings to connect to the world. Now, an archetype, in the way that Jung or whatever talks about it, is like a pattern or so that lies that can be used to describe not necessarily an individual being existing like a Platonic idea outside of oneself, but perhaps a pattern. I'll get into this. It's like the one who faces the other way, which is what I like to think of the showman as, or if you could slightly elaborate on that thing, is the showman is one who asks for attention and faces the many with something to show in such a way as to enrich others. Like, these are all like elaborations on what the showman could be. And I think that these things, the one who stands up in the cave and has something to share with the others that makes them feel good, this pattern, this is a strange attractor in the chaos of human possibilities of interactions. And this pattern is embodied or comes into being in a person, and that person we call the showman. And it's the showman is kind of with a capital S here. It's something bigger and distinct from a sort of lowercase showman, just somebody who's doing it. It's like, because the showman with a capital S is not just a poet, it's not just a musician, and he's not just a dancer. Each one of those is, of course, a showman with like a lowercase s, but all those things, they are expressions of what I think is the archetypal process, or the archetypal pattern that I call showman. This way of interacting with the world, this way of being in the world, this way of having a division between one person having something to share with lots of other people that they can benefit from. So this is maybe a slightly expanded, or it's a different view of the activity that a showman partakes in, or like of showmanship, than most people how most people use it these days, because they of course only, like, a showman is often a sort of a bit of a light-hearted, belittling kind of thing. Oh, it's just a showman, or it's just showmanship. It's not actually any content in what they are telling us or whatever. Now, then, if telling jokes, juggling, dancing, or playing music, or whatever material a performer chooses to present in their show, if this is all part of this process, if all of this is, these different things are just expressions or part of a process, what can we say that is valid for all of them? There's got to be a common denominator of all performances, or indeed all artistic activity. So I'm looking for here what is at the heart, or the most fundamental, what is most fundamental, or what is the heart of the performance process. And this goes back to this thing of multidisciplinary, having a multidisciplinary approach when you are being a director or an act doctor, somebody who helps other people create work. Then you need to have a multidisciplinary approach. I need to be able to have things to say to to everyone, whether they are a singer or a poet or a juggler or whatever. When I was working with soiree and I had to do this, then you always have to look. I'm asking, talking to them, and then if it doesn't work out, they don't quite get me, then I need to go one level below that, and then I need to go one level below that, and in that process we get to more and more fundamental things. And the thing that I have found here, that I find that is the most fundamental, where that all of us do, and from which then arises all the other individual branches of what showfolk does, whether they're a teacher that's like explaining biology to someone, or they're to one person standing in front of another group telling them about biology, or whether that person is reading a poem, or whether that person is showing some juggling. The one thing which I find that they all do is that they work with attention. Without attention, there can be no meaningful performance. There needs to be a shared or joint attention. This is necessary for a show to happen. Showfolk of all kinds ask for and are given attention by audiences. Attention over time. We're given time and attention, and the only thing that we can do is to decide what to do with it. In this time, we can present poems, we can move our bodies, we can play music, but all of these are merely different aspects of the process of shared attention. The shared attention between the showman and the audience, because the showman shapes and manipulates the attention like a sculptor fashions clay. So when I try to break down what a showman does in its most fundamental form, I believe us showfolk to be curators of attention. The activity of showmanship is curating a duration of time. A duration of time which is, you could say it's a duration of time of shared attention. Attention permeates every aspect of showmanship. Attention has been put into the creation of the performance, and each of the acts the showman presents, be it poetry, jokes, or demonstrations of skills, are the result of attention paid. The choices made about how to start, continue, and finish the show are all decisions that emerge from the showman paying attention to them and selecting one thing over another, showing one thing before the other and how to present it. These are all results of paying attention and then making choices about what to present, how to present it. This process of choosing based on whatever is deemed relevant and right by the performer, this is what I call, and probably actually what anyone would call, curation, if you had to think about it as a phenomenon in itself. Like, we exhibit ourselves as curators in the same way that how a curator in a museum curate an exhibition. Then the showman curates show experiences. A museum exhibition is perhaps the first thing that springs to mind when we think of curation. There's always a curator involved in shaping what goes into a museum exhibition. Curation is a process of selection. It's choosing certain things and omitting others. Curation is a kind of restriction, a creative restriction which gives form to unique exhibitions. And what these restrictions can be is endless, like the kind of restrictions that a curator can choose, or if you haven't thought it fully through, it can just happen by bias or whatever. But it could be like it could be female artists with middle names beginning with L, paintings by them, or modernist sculpture, but only the ones that are made with metal wire. It can be pop art. It can be paintings costing more than $10 million, but it could also just be like, the thing that ties it together is that it's all paintings, or that it is all art, or that it is all parts from machines. There is no limit to what the kind of lens of curation can be. But carefully crafted curation can show trends and connections that one might never have discovered unless it was pointed out to you. In the best way, then that's what it is. It's like it brings out patterns, or it brings out interesting connections in the world. And although museums might be the first thing that you think of, there's also a lot of curation going on the internet. And I'm thinking here of the Brain Pickings blog by Maria Popova. This is a perfect example of that. She collects and curates gems. She thinks she got a star of people as well now, but she just finds interesting and meaningful stuff from all over the cultural landscape. And she's not curating her website like a museum that chooses one-off pieces, which from then on will only be on show in that particular exhibit, in that particular museum. She's rather pulling out diamonds from the endless dirt of the information overflow or overload and placing them together and connecting them to an ever-growing collection of gems. So her brainpickings.org, you can find her online. Because you all know that there's mostly crap and time-wasting content on the internet. So to click yourself into a carefully curated site where each post presents something valuable as well as being part of a collection of other posts, and it's carefully and copiously interconnected as well. So whenever she's talking about a topic that she's written about before, it's linked up with other things. So it's both interesting in itself, but it's also interesting for the connections that that each gem has with the other ones. And it's this kind of curation that creates depth. And to me, depth is about interconnection. It's you gain the depth and you gain understanding of depth by seeing how it is connected to many other things. And in that way, I'd think of her as a show woman, somebody who is presenting a perfect act of showmanship, but it's coming out in the form of a blog. She's absolutely keeping the audience in mind. She's picking out gems from a specific book. Sometimes it can just be a whole little post or about a particular quote and what that triggers in her or whatever. Very good. So with all this said, you now probably get the gist of why I believe that the most fundamental unit of a showman's or a showwoman's or a showperson's or a performer's work is the curation of human attention. So a showman is a curator of time and attention. So it doesn't get more fundamental than that. When we go beneath all the different variations on material that we can do, the endless things that we go on about that I love to go into the details of talking to Jay Gilligan about juggling, or talking to Morgan James about the intricacies of how to connect with an audience, or reading whatever it is that I'm reading and practicing my skills. I love all these different aspects. I love poetry and I love all these things, but then trying to get what is the most fundamental thing that we do. I love this stuff, and I hope you it resonates with you as well. Now, I have been from the long-time listeners, you know that I read poetry, and you know that I sometimes read the poetry of Charles Bukowski, who also picks up gems from the dirt and holds them up. And if I found this poem that I actually turns out that I have this. I found it on the internet, but I found that it comes from a collection of poetry called Septuagenarian Stew, meaning somebody who's 70. It actually was published in 1990, when, which was the year that Bukowski was turning 70. So that's the explanation of that poem. But of course, now they're also talking to a septuagenarian who I'm sharing a dressing room with every day. We have a beautiful little caravan with Freddie Stickle, and you know, you get a different perspective on things when you are 70, and when you know, you think that you have some great idea. I do, and then he goes, "Oh yeah, I used to do that back in the day," and you sort of realize you get humbled by anyway. those rambling things aside, I found this poem called The Strange, and I thought that it was just, I really liked it. So I thought I'd close this episode off by reading The Strange by Charles Bukowski. The strongest of the strange. You won't see them often. The strongest of the strange, you won't see them often, for wherever there is a crowd, they are not. Those odd ones, not many, but from them come the few good paintings, the few good symphonies, the few good books and other works. And from the best of the strange ones, perhaps nothing. They are their own paintings, their own books. They are their own music, their own work. And sometimes I think I see them. Say, a certain old man sitting on a certain bench in a certain way, or a quick face going the other way in a passing automobile, or there's a certain motion of the hands of a bag boy or a bag girl while packing supermarket groceries. Sometimes it is even somebody you have been living with for some time. You will notice a lightning quick glance never seen from them before. And sometimes you will only note their existence suddenly in vivid recall some months, some years after they are gone. I remember such a one. He was about 20 years old, drunk at 10 a.m., staring into a cracked New Orleans mirror, facing, dreaming against the walls of the world. Where did I go? The strange, the strongest of the strange. You won't see them often, for wherever the crowd is, they are not. Those odd ones, not many, but from them come the few good paintings, the few good symphonies, the few good books and other works. And from the best of the strange ones, perhaps nothing. They are their own paintings, their own books, their own music, their own work. Sometimes I think I see them, say, a certain old man sitting on a certain park bench in a certain way, or a quick face going the other way in a passing automobile, or there's a certain motion of the hands of a bag boy or a bag girl while packing supermarket groceries. And sometimes it is even somebody you have been living with for some time. You will notice a lightning quick glance never seen from them before, and sometimes you will only note their existence suddenly in vivid recall some months, some years after they are gone. And I remember such a one. He was about 20 years old, drunk at 10 a.m., staring into a cracked New Orleans mirror, facing, dreaming against the walls of the world. Where did I go? Yeah, I won't go into a lengthy discussion about the poem. The poem is a beautiful multitude of things. It's a multiplicity of meanings. There's so many things going on here. Like he goes, the strongest of the strange. You won't see them wherever a crowd is. You know, they don't like to be with a crowd. But here as well, I'm like going, because when I'm thinking of the strange here, I'm thinking of the artist. I'm thinking of people such as myself, who stand facing the other way. When Bukowski too went out and did these readings that he did, and you can find some of them online, where he's playing the role of the drunk poet. He's getting drunk in front of them, getting in arguments and trying to egg people on to get in a fight, or he's absolutely playing the character who can deliver this kind of drunken wisdom or whatever that he has, the misanthrope or so. But but still, he is the one person on that stage facing the other way, and when he's doing his work, he is being then he's isolating himself, like you're being boring from the view of the you're not the life of the party. You're at home writing poems, and you have to get the words in the right order and to cut away all the words that are not needed. Then you need to be a little boring. So just from that first stanza here, like I'm just now looking at it with the lens of showmanship, and which is the only lens. It's just this whole podcast. It's just me talking about things as I see them, I guess. So, but he also goes, those people who do step away, the strange ones. They are the, those odd ones. Not many, but from them come a few good paintings. It's like most people who are alone or trying to do this, writing a poem or trying to do some act or whatever, it's maybe most of it is not good. Like I just mentioned about Maria Popova being a curator of the internet, where there's also mainly not awesome, and you gotta find those gems out there. And yeah, anyway, I won't go through the whole thing, but also, yeah, I'll let you make up your own mind about these things. But I found this gem on the internet, not on Maria Popova's site. Probably the algorithms of the internet had thought that they should put this in my way. So I guess there are digital curators going on as well. But I urge you to go out there and stepping out onto your stage of the world, be that your life, your caravan, your house, or into wherever you step, that you will pay attention to yourself as a curator of time and attention, your own and others. So, a little bit of housekeeping at the end. It would be amazing if you could write me a review on iTunes. Click 5 stars. It always helps. It costs you little. It makes a lot of sense for me. If you do like what I do here, you can tell it in a way that I really notice by going to buymeacoffee.com/CaptainFrodo and giving me a donation. That would be wonderful to see. Apart from that, soon I will be making some t-shirts. The first t-shirts have been made and worn by people around the world. So I'm gonna tell you more about that perhaps in the next episode. Until then, all that's left to be said is take care of yourself and those you love, and I hope to see you along the way.